Hello, hello. I'm Quentin. I'm here with another Q&A. I'm here with the artist Joey Slaughter at his show Hatchback Tetris at Titty Contemporary. So, let's begin. Let's start with our first question here.
Okay.
Partly reading, partly experiencing, reading your artist statement and just, being in the whole like general atmosphere of the show, I've came to understand that like your process is very much you take a very like abstract sort of thinking. You're
Right.
tackling, you're trying to translate conversations, communications, translation itself. That's a very like abstract way of thinking. I want to understand the sort of tools, skills, or techniques you developed in order to like visualize all this, this level of abstraction that we're contemplating over.
Okay. I think that it kind of starts going back to abstraction or non-representation or whatever. It's like, for me, I feel like representation can't combine the weirdness of everyday life and just so I'm more interested in the emotional side and what emotions could look like if you could see them
Mhm.
and just you know, all the nuances of a pause in a sentence or reflection that takes place in a moment. And we're never thinking one thought at any given time. We're thinking a multitude of thoughts, and
Yeah.
there's coming in and out. And so I want the work to kind of be that way. Sometimes I want them to be overwhelming, and sometimes I want them to be, and balance that with color and composition and things like that. So I usually start with words, that I pick up. Sometimes they're snippets of song lyrics or conversations with friends or just overhearing conversations. And I have an archive of those. And as I'm working for shows, I pull those out and go over them and contemplate them and wonder what was happening in conversations like that. What were people thinking? Are they thinking about this one-to-one engagement?
Mhm.
Are they thinking about what they need to do next? And yeah, I don't know. I'm going through all those different types of thoughts and emotions with it. And so the shapes kind of dictate that. And they also come from numerous things. The compositions come from like old children's toys, especially like Fisher Price pull toys. I've always liked those pastel colors. The the there's like pastel and bright colors with them and the used look of them as well that just shows that they've been played with in a way. And so
Yeah.
some of the work in here varies over the last year, but you'll see some of them look more refined and some of them look a little bit more raw or punk rock or whatever. And I like mixing those two together now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That was insightful. I have a lot to think about now. Then okay. Carrying on to our next question. Sort of playing off of that, I want to understand the like the sort of dynamic between these species, how they speak to one another. There's a um, I read some of them as kind of like going off of the title show Hatchback Tetris, like Tetris as in connective pieces, but sometimes I can't connect all of them. They sort of clash with one another. Some pieces do,
Yeah.
some pieces don't. So I want to understand like how do you see them speaking to one another? Like especially like either in their placement or in their like naming scheme or just how they were made.
Okay. How do they relate to each other? Um, I think I think there's pattern, there's repetition, there's some of the frames reference each other. Like these are these two, and there's a few of them that are kind of gasket related.
Yeah.
And I've always been really interested in what a frame can be, and that's why I don't like. I mean, I don't do a lot of traditional rectangles and squares, even though I have a few in the show. But I feel that if I'm gonna make a frame, I need to make it purposeful a lot of times. Not always, but most of the time,
Hmm.
because I want it to integrate. I want it to be integrated and speak to something else about the work. So if you look around, you'll see that the formats aren't necessarily, they're shapes. They're not basic shapes, but I want them to inform the work inside of it as well or around it. And so that came from like this one time where I was just like thinking about the architecture of any given space. It's like how much do these walls absorb in your presence? And like if there's a history of time where they say if these walls could talk, people say
Yeah,
that
yeah,
cliche, if these walls could talk, what would they say? They would it'd just be brutally honest, it'd be like this person's awesome and whatever. But I like that phrase because it talks about the dynamic of some space that's been lived in. And so I was thinking about when I started doing these shapes, it was more like a thought cloud of information, not the typical cartoon thought cloud,
yeah.
but it's a container of information of a conversation, a snippet, or whatever. And that's how they all kind of relate, I think, in some ways.
Okay.
So some of them relate with the type of materials to other ones. I hope that you will bounce across the room and find the ones that kind of relate and also appreciate the ones that don't necessarily go together, that clash, as we say.
Yeah.
I think clashing is important in the work, you know.
Hmm.
Trying to get two desperate materials to work together that wouldn't, like rubber mats and painted surface. It's a challenge.
I imagine it was, well, obviously you enjoyed it, right?
Oh yeah, it's the
Yeah, yeah,
best thing
yeah.
in the world.
I feel like it can be fun, it's giving it's the helping amount of challenge, like, integrating things that don't normally work together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. That, plays on to my next question. So I want to understand your relationship with found materials and, previous Q&As or other artists that I've talked to, their relationship with found material is stemmed from like just, it's been a long standing part of their process. It's been a change due to a recent workshop or it's part of their culture, their history. Like what is your is there like a level of like intimacy or I just want to understand again your relationship with your found material.
Okay. That's a To me, that's really, it's a kind of a new area to use the found materials in the work. I've always recycled, like I don't throw much away.
Yeah.
So the interior pieces of these become works that later down the road are part of it. But back to your question, the materials themselves, I try to let them, well, let me just go back. The floor mats from cars are welcome mats, or yeah, but those two are mostly what are in the show in the patterns that you see in some of the works like that. They're floor mats and cars I got from the junkyard.
Hmm.
And so going to the junkyard and going through these cars and trucks and they're probably in wrecks, most of them, or they just no longer work. But I think about when something's new to you,
Hmm.
you get that dopamine rush
Yeah.
and then it just fades away. And then so these things were once precious. Maybe it was someone's first car. And then these floor mats again absorbed the conversations and they're rubber, so they keep you grounded. They say rubber grounds you.
Yeah.
And so I was interested in all of that. Um, and then the hard thing for me was how do you glue this down and make it stay? So I had to do a lot of experimentation with types of glues. And then I just had to just start cutting them up because a lot of them didn't work as whole. But just that special interaction with these cars and thinking about it was once new and what, I love yous took place in that car, emotional, fights or whatever took place in that car. There's a bunch of things that just, are they being absorbed? I don't
Hmm.
know. And, probably not, but it's like there's a history to it.
Yeah.
And in cutting those up, I try to think about that stuff, that, these things are intentionally made to be worn out. And I kind of feel sorry for them a little bit. There's a little bit of, that we just abuse things and just replace them. And I don't necessarily like that. So I try to honor them and give them a new life in the work.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where it comes from. But, we just rub, it's supposed to be dirt, like shoes do the same thing. But, yeah, And so that covers the floor mats. The other piece is like patterns, and this is the wasteboard from the CNC router of cutting basically all of the works that are kind of like this in this room. That one over there. So the wasteboard on, I mean, the background and there, the black is coming from uh, a board that typically is thrown away as well. So the blade comes down and it goes in here and cuts out these shapes. So these are the paths that it took, and I just painted it and made it um, important again in the work for me anyway.
Yeah.
And then there's the sheetrock tape that's on a lot of the work here, and it's things that you don't see the labor that goes into your home, and so it's kind of honoring that as well as the dolly over there that's on the piece by the window
Yeah.
where a worker takes they use that. The guy gave me that, and it was his first dolly he started his business with,
Hmm.
and my wife put out a call on Facebook and said if anybody has an old dolly, my husband would like to use it if you in his artwork if you don't mind. And so he gave it to us, and it was broke. And so I was fiddling around with it, and I had an assistant, and he was like holding it, and I was like, "That's what we got to do." So now it's become a pedestal for that piece,
Huh.
and I sent the images to him. He's like, "Oh man, that was my first dolly, and now it's repurposed into something else," and he was excited about it.
Hmm.
But so there's some of the materials there, and then you'll see in a lot of the work there's lines like the one around here, and those are from storage containers where the Home Depot or Lowe's big 32-gallon storage containers are like black with a yellow top on them.
Yeah.
So I poured paint into the tops and pull that out and then collage it on. And so it's kind of just like, like people buy the storage and storage becomes a problem, just like out of sight, out of mind.
Hmm.
And so I use that. And that echo is important for me in the work too, of why we keep things.
I get it. I'm starting to understand like a new level of intimacy when it comes to a lot of your work.
Yeah.
Okay. So, um, thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
Now I want to understand the sort of from what it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of your process comes with trial and error, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're having to work with a lot of like new material like tires, the surface layer on right here, and
Mhm.
when you do come to those certain roadblocks or when things don't connect, how do you like navigate around that, or how do you repurpose or depict it in the new lights?
Yeah. Well, just to back up a little, I start with a sketch usually,
Hmm.
really raw in the sketchbook. I still have a sketchbook that I carry with me.
Hmm.
My teachers in undergrad were very adamant that it's going to be hard to do anything if you don't have a place to jot down ideas and take
So,
notes. And so I feel like I can understand what would be good for a piece of mine, like even if it's just a real quick sketch, not good, but could potentially work. I mean, for
mhm.
me, and I don't really know if that's gonna work. So this will lead into your question. But when I get to a new place like this piece, I didn't know if the gasket thing would hold up. But when I go into like AutoZone or O'Reilly's and I get I go around and I don't look for the reason why the whatever I'm looking at is used,
Mhm.
I'm like, how can that be reinterpreted into artwork? So, so I was just looking at the gaskets, the paper gaskets that started coming in. I was like, okay, I want to use that for frames, and I still want to do more of them, but um, I did not think it was going to work, and in fact, it didn't work at
Hmm.
first because I just wanted to make them two layers, like the yellow and the kind of yellow orange over there, and the pink and the red.
Hmm.
And then I started looking at the smaller ones that I just done like these that have the sides on it. and I just started cutting down the older works and making the sides, and that's what made it come to life for me. So it's just like still it's just always if it's not working for me, I keep moving. I don't give up very easily on it, but um, I just keep adding or taking away. I'm usually adding though, which isn't always good. You know,
Yeah.
it gets overwhelming quick though, and I trust my wife when I in a situation like that to come in and go stop or that's kind of working, and you know, so I trust some of my student workers as well that the younger students do internships with me sometimes,
Okay.
and I'll be like, what do you think? And they're like, and they're really honest, you know. It's
Mm.
really helpful to just
Yeah.
have that, you know, kind of back and forth. Did I answer the question?
No, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if how it works out, I don't know really until you get that feeling,
Yeah,
you
there's
know?
always that sense of completion or what's right. It's innate to you. It's what you develop. It's hard to
Yeah.
describe.
Yeah. And there's I always tell my students, and I look at making a work of art like a boxing match. You know, you get into there, you're like, I'm gonna get my ass kicked, but I may get my ass kicked, but I'm gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be good. You don't have to. And when I say win, I just basically mean complete it. And when you complete something, you're ready to move on to something else. But it's really difficult to complete things. That 80%, it's easy to get there. That extra 20%, like I probably had like 20 works going at once. And and it had to be like finish, 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 finish. It wouldn't be like finish. Okay, that was done, put it away. It's like they all get finished around the same time. And I don't like that part of it.
That's, like I'm also an artist, so I understand some for some us, it's the hardest part of the process is either beginning or ending.
Yeah. We tend to want to go back to the dopamine rush of starting something over again
Hmm.
or throwing it away and starting new. But I've learned throughout my process that I'm not going to gain anything if I do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that you just got to battle it, and you don't have to finish it, but it makes it better if you feel like you did what you could.
Yeah.
I think I got off track, but
Nah, I enjoy this conversation we're having.
okay.
So, um, possibly moving on to my final question. I want to know how should your audience engage with your work? Simply put, is it a sort of meditative process? Is it a um like what should be the mind space when just sitting down and engaging with your work?
I think that's up to interpretation. I really, you know, like Mark Bradford said that when he goes back and sees his work his past work, he's like, oh, I remember that relationship I had with you, and like all these, I remember that too. It's like that was a really difficult thing to, you know, just glue down and just go with. So I feel like I have my relationships, but like Wilco said, when you put your art up on the wall, it's up for anybody to interpret at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just like for people to just want to, I just hope people will want to be like, what kind of material is that? How did that happen? How'd you make that? Um, and you know, the colors were kind of cool together. So to me, it's like loving furniture, a piece of furniture, loving a piece of music, loving a piece of art. It's kind of the same thing. Something that you want to stay with a little bit longer than the second, and then I'm good. You know, I think that, and I don't watch people engage with my work. I'd rather be having conversations with people and, you know, openings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that people just want to see it every day because you probably have works around your home and or your office or whatever. And every morning you get up and you walk through that space, you're like, hey, former student who traded work with, I love you. Or that piece of furniture that I traded for work, or, whatever, the bed or the sheets or whatever that you start to curate. I hope that people would want to curate it in their lives,
Hmm.
so where it'd be meaningful for them. That would be the ultimate experience, I think, that people just want to be around it for a certain amount of time, you know. But I couldn't tell you how. Um, I don't have any expectations of what that would be at this point. I used to, but that's futile, because you don't get expectations just lead you down, they just let you down. So I try not to have that too much.
Okay. Okay. So, moving on to the final question, I want to understand the sort of the brainchild, the idea behind the show, like how it started, or what was it? Not how it started, but what did it connect to, or I want to understand just essentially the history of the show before it started.
So, okay. So the show title itself, you want me to start there? Or you want, or how I came up with it?
Oh, yes, I want to like understand how you came up with the show, what it was leading up, the months leading up to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has something to do with like having an old truck and working on the truck and feeling like I'm making art when
Yeah.
I'm working on it. And then also I watched a skateboard video. I'm an avid skateboarder and I've always appreciated the culture of it. And I watched this video and they're like trying to put like, I don't know, 20 skateboards in the back of a van. And
Hmm.
no, yeah, something like that. They're trying to put all these skateboards in, all their clothes, and they're like, we're playing hatchback Tetris. And I was like, that's a really cool name. I'm writing that down. And then I went on a residency to Golden Paint last January, and I knew that I wanted to take some of the work. I mean, some things to work on, and some of the works of here were made there, but I had to drive my truck to New York and just arranging things. I kept thinking about that title, like with those storage containers I told you about. Like
Hmm.
I was able to get six in there perfectly and then layer things on top of it. And that's how I brought the work back to you. So I feel like I get, it's not to an obsessive level, but the way things fit together, the sides, and I went back and forth with the title with Joshua, but I was like, but when I started putting the sides of these together, they're all individual pieces. And so I'm like, I'm playing Tetris, cutting these things, making them fit, hoping they're interacting with the rest of the work and challenging what a frame can be. So I was like, I've got to name it Hatchback Tetris now because it's about how things fit together and trying to make them in a certain space. And then I was looking at the way I was making work and all these tables in my studio, and they're all at the same level. And I'm almost playing Tetris in a bigger box.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's just it's taking all these little parts and making something with it, and I guess like making a composition
Hmm.
like Tetris is. And I feel like there are always potentials moving like that too. I could have done that better, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well,
There was a
like,
second part to that question, wasn't it? Did I
uh,
get it?
no, that was pretty much it. I just want to
Okay.
understand the idea before the show's opening.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that's today's Q&A. Again, I want to thank Joey Slaughter for being with me here today. I want to also thank Tindy Contemporary, Joshua, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Very nice talking to you.